The Property Lane.
Welcome to the Property Lane, where it's everything real estate. Once again, my name is Catherine Nantes, your host tonight. And with me are very powerful men in the real estate sector that have made the changes you see. I know there is a lot to be done, but today we will be discussing a very pertinent topic: professionalism and ethics in the real estate sector. And I have the right people today on the panel. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me our first panelist and our guest tonight, Dr. Ronald Sengendo, who is also the chairperson of the Surveyors Registration Board. Doctor, say something to the public.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm happy to be here. Our viewers, I'm happy to be here today to discuss issues of professionalism in the real sector. The sector has grown a lot over the last 20-30 years, and it is important that we put ethics and professionalism at the heart of this sector. Thank you.
Thank you. We will be getting to know what Surveyors Registration Board is all about. But before we go into all that, we have with us the mother of the industry, our director from the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, the one in charge of housing, none other than Director Dev Kayangayanga. Please tell us, introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. As Kata said, I'm Dev Kayangayanga. I'm the Director for Housing and Human Settlements in the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development. It's a pleasure coming here such that we can talk about this important sector. It is worth noting that the real estate sector contributes over 70% to the gross national domestic product. And if it is well professionalized, it can harness more and can do a lot in bringing more revenue to government, but at the same time in cutting the housing deficit, which is at around 2.4 million housing units. It's a pleasure.
Wow. We almost got started because you mentioned very interesting figures there. Ladies and gentlemen, our final guest tonight is someone who saw real estate and saw the future of real estate and decided that we need to organize the players in this industry, even before many of us understood what real estate is. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me the founder member of the Association of Real Estate Agents of Uganda and our very first president, Mr. Vincent Agaba. Please say something.
Yeah, thank you very much, our host, Kathy. It's interesting that this time you are on the other side of the, because you have been on this side, but we appreciate for the initiative. And of course, our viewers, we thank you for paying attention to this program. And of course, our senior director and of course, the chair SRB, I'm happy to be with you here today. It's a pleasure. And we think that we can share what we can. But professionalism is the anchor. If we go wrong on professionalism, the business struggles. I thank you, Kathy, for the invitation.
Yes, to start with you, Vincent, what is professionalism and ethics in real estate, especially knowing the fact that we do not have regulations in place? What would you consider as professionalism?
No, Kathy, for me, I think professionalism and ethics, it's actually the art of doing things properly. I would like to put a disclaimer on the word properly. Properly meaning that we have rules of the game. I like to use sports because in my view, sports seems to have serious rules. You must have a linesman on the pitch, you must have a referee, and these days you must have VAR to ensure that the errors and omissions are also detected. Now, trying to change that into what we do in real estate is that are we having the rules of the game? And I think director here and of course chairman SRB, those are things which I think they are looking at from their own point of view because they work with the law. They work with the acts, for example, the Surveyors Registration Act. And of course, director here working hard to ensure that there are policies, there are legislations that try to make sure that these rules are in place. So for me, when we looked at the real estate sector in 2008, there were no hardly rules of the game. And we thought that actually the way to do this, there are two ways. One is self-regulation. Number two is regulated by the Act of Parliament. And those are legislations passed at the national level to ensure that people don't injure each other in the field. So we took the route of self-regulation. Of course, we knew that there were other acts which were in place. For example, the Surveyors Registration Act already provided for us. But with due respect at that time, I think the landscape was not ready to ensure that these agents and managers are put within the armpit. We said, let's move ahead, and when we reach that time, we shall catch up together. But for me, the issue here is, can we serve the community? Can we serve the people? Can we offer the services with professionalism? Meaning that we should not cheat the public. We should do the work and be proud to do it.
Yeah.
Number two, we should have what we call our service as a calling. People are called to be priests in the Catholic Church. Others are called to be directors in housing. Others are called to be chairpersons of Sarabi. We are called to be agents. And that is a calling.
Yeah.
So when it's a calling, you do it service above self.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the basis of the code of conduct. It is the basis of professional ethics. So what we did at Area Uganda that time, we went ahead and drafted what we call the code of conduct. That code of conduct exists. But because we were not having a law to enforce it, we had to convince each of ourselves that, guys, can we do these things this way?
Oh, yeah.
We were trying to leverage ourselves on the power of the men. When we are together, we are better than being alone. They say, there's a saying, we say that the one who ate a dog was one. But that whole village, people started saying that that village, they eat dogs. But there was only one person who ate a dog.
Vincent, that's very interesting. I'll be coming back to you
Exactly.
on the issue of code of conduct.
Thank you.
Because, there's still some issues there.
Yes.
And before I get to Director Dev, I know you have struggled to put this industry together, and you've not given up. Right before you became director up to now.
Yes.
I would like to understand from Dr. Ronald, as I come to director. I read somewhere in the Surveyors Registration Act that agents are surveyors. Are you talking about the same people that Vincent is talking about? Yes.
The Surveyors Registration Act sets up the Surveyors Registration Board.
Yeah.
And within that act, the act is old, 1974. It defines what surveyor is. And among the surveyors is land agents and all other professionals in the built and land environment sector. Now, I would say that land agents or real estate agents are among surveyors. So they should be regulated and controlled by the Surveyors Registration Act. But I also accept from where Vincent is coming from that the way this sector came up, it came up from a point whereby everyone in the village would choose to be a broker. So we are calling it brokers, not even agents. Of course, when Area Uganda came on board, and we must thank Area Uganda, both as a Surveyors Board and government, for bringing some sanity in the sector. Now what we are discussing between, of course, Area Uganda Ministry and the board is how do we take this legislation to a step higher, whereby we're able to even issue licenses to what we can call licensed real estate agents. That is now where we are. But within the act, real estate agents are classified under surveyors. That's what I can say.
Yeah, that's very controversial. That's going to send some panic waves in Vincent's body. By body, I mean area. Now, Director, help us put the two together. Is it possible to take our people through how we have come to regulating the sector? Because I know at the moment you're working on a real estate bill, but I know it's been a process. What would we determine at the moment as being some sort of professionalism? Just take us through the history. I know many agents think there are no laws, but there are some laws that guide some aspects of the sector.
Thank you so much for that inquiry.
Yes.
You see, real estate is quite a broad subsector, and it leans on a number of areas. As my friend from the survey profession has hinted, this already the Surveyors Registration Act, and some of the issues are covered under that act.
Okay.
When you look at the Public Health Act, it touches on some things. When you look at the condominium law, it touches on certain things. When you look at the tenants, landlord act,
tenant, yeah.
it also touches on this. But what we are saying is that we need an act, a law that is broad and that specifically focuses on this area.
Of real estate?
Of real estate, yes.
Okay.
And of course, one of the most important things that we are addressing is the issue of consumer protection and the consumer confidence. Because as a sector, if we lose the confidence amongst our consumers, then we go into disarray, because we are dealing in business. And we want, if someone is coming to buy a property or someone is renting a property, he should be super confident that what he's doing, what he's putting his money in is worth it, and he's very comfortable. As a minister, of course, we wanted to see how far we have gone. Yes, we realized that putting the legal framework to address some of the issues and the inconsistencies in the real estate sector are very, very critical. We drafted the first, of course, we had a level of documentation and discussion with our cabinet ministers who presented the principles which were approved. And as we talk, we have something in a draft. But of course, we don't want it to be inventing the wheel. There are other countries that have fairly or reasonably regulated and guided the sector. And as we talk, we are on the benchmarking, such that we don't waste a lot of time on some of the things that may not necessarily make sense or make some mistakes which we would otherwise be able to address. So currently we have zeroed on 2 countries, one in Africa, South Africa, and one in Asia, which is India, which have elaborate legal framework on the real estate sector. We are so far done with South Africa. I think that was last month. And before the end of this month, we would be able to take stock of what the Indian country, which is a subcontinent, it has a lot of experience, has gone and addressed, and we should be able to extract that. So that
very interesting. We have to take a brief commercial break, and I realize this topic will need a second episode because we haven't even touched the gist of it. As we come back, we would like to inform you that we are here at Fairway Hotel, where all my guests agree they've been great changes to the place. If you haven't been here, please make it a date to come. Yes, welcome back from that brief break. We were still hearing about the real estate bill that is coming up, that director was telling us will be all-encompassing. And director, will it look at the developers as well? Because when you talk consumer protection, there are many people who are complaining, especially about the off-plan investments, and then some investments that are not, where developers are not giving what they promise in picture to the buyers. I'm wondering, will the bill be able to cover all that?
Thank you so much for that question. Indeed, as you may recall, initially we had when I talk of we, you and us, we had thought of moving on the area of agents.
Yeah.
But we realized that the agents need to deal in things which consumers appreciate. Okay. And therefore, bringing on board the developers was one of the reasons why we consider to have delayed a bit, but it is worthwhile. So the developers must be within this bill, especially when you look at the fact that currently we have situations where people buy properties off plan, and unless it is well regulated, monitored, consumers may be a bit scary because they are not sure.
Yeah.
Or if one developer doesn't deliver as per the plan, then the others will pull out. What will the agency deal in?
Nothing.
Those are the questions. So the developers are part and a part of this whole process.
Wow, that's very interesting. Back to SRB. By the way, what is SRB? What do you guys do?
SRB in full is Surveyors Registration Board. We regulate and control the surveying profession in Uganda and advise government in relation to that matter. Then, of course, the definition of a surveyor then comes in, because the surveyor then is defined: valuation surveyor, land surveyor, quantity surveyor, real estate agent, mining and other surveyors, all over grouped in that act under surveyors. And just like you're asking director, the act only regulates the estate agents in this case, or the surveyors in this case, but does not regulate the developers. And that is important, because when you look at the sector like real estate, it is like schools. I can be a rich man, I start a school, but I'm not going to be the headmaster of the school when I'm not a teacher. And this is what we need to appreciate in the real estate sector, that there are rich people who are investing in real estate, but they should not be the ones that are running the real estate agency, because then that one is for professionals who are real estate agents. And I think that distinction must be very clear, even as we talk about the bill, that there's a developer on one hand who is anybody, but then there's also a professional who must be guided by professional conduct, professional standards, ethics, because those are very important. Without those, you can't be a professional. You can only be a professional if you have ethics and you have standards. So I think, Director, that is a very good way. Let's include the developers, but let's put emphasis on these professionals who are going to manage what the developers have done. That would be my take.
Yes, Vincent, you talked of a code of conduct for the real estate agents under Area Uganda. First and foremost, is Area Uganda a voluntary association, or is it, or you're just friends with the ministry? Are you known by the ministry?
No, Kathy, like what I said in the beginning, there are two ways of having sanity in an industry. One is from the legal framework point of view, and that's by acts of parliament that are in existence and by the policies that are made by the mainstream ministries and directorates, like what our director here leads. The other, number two, is what we call self-regulation, whereby a group of people come together and think, okay, we like to do things the right way, and we can associate and actually work together and agree that this is what we are going to do, and in that way protect our consumers, as the director said, and also look good in the public. So area took the route of self-regulation, which is also, I think, okay. And you do that, but you don't do it in isolation. You do it in cooperation and partnership with the other institutions, the ministry, and, for example, other existing institutions. So in that way, we thank the ministry. Has been very supportive, because without the ministry, I can assure you, area would not be existing. Even the surveyors, part of them actually are members of area, because they do real estate agency business. So we have done it that way in order to wait for that time, to ensure that our mother ministry, as it prepares itself, and other sister agencies or bodies like the board of surveyors, come along, they find a nurtured, well-groomed ground. So in my view, area what it did is to prepare. Actually, we have been a midwife. To prepare for the delivery of the baby, so the father and the mother can take over. I think that's what we have done. So I'm happy to hear that director.
And I have the father and the mother.
And the father and the mother are here. I think as Area Uganda, that's what we have done, director. That's what we have done, chairman, to prepare the ground for these two institutions to take over from there.
Dr. Sengendo, the law is 1974. Like, what took you long to bring these guys on board?
Thank you. Thank you.
Because I see the sector just started popping up on its own and running, and now the law is chasing the sector.
Thank you, Kathy. That's a very good question. I think the challenge was there was a misunderstanding on where surveyor is as far as the act is. For a long time in this country, surveyors were only land surveyors, or what we call bapunta in the local language. Even other specialties like valuation surveying, quantity surveying came on board at different levels. As I said in the beginning, for the last 20 years, the sector has really grown. And area Uganda has done the midwife operation. I think right now is a time, as we wait for the law, that we start some level of legislation, and control. Because now this is a sector, like the director said, over 70% of the
7% of
the GDP. So this is
one of the second biggest employer.
Yeah, so it has a lot of money of the GDP, but it also employs a number of people. Now it employs different people, like Vincent is saying, engineers, medical doctors, surveyors, but also employs people who have no qualification. So as a board and as a ministry and as we wait for the law, for the legislative bill which will be encompassing, can we start with regulating a few of the real estate agents who are really qualified? They have the experience, they have the training, they have all the preparation, they know the codes of conduct. Can we give them some legislation so that when the law comes, the bill of real estate, it finds already a sector that is already started on the journey of regulation. So that's what the board right now is doing, of course, in conjunction with Area Uganda.
Wow, we are running out of time, dear viewers. Please don't forget to leave your comments, suggestions, and if you want this same group, please say so. Because I feel like we haven't scratched even the surface, but the time is so limited and the time is so short. I'll give each of you to give like a closing remark. But before I do that, director had to respond. There was the issue of the board. Shall we be expecting like a real estate board, or is it too early to comment on that? And also as both Vincent and Dr. here agreeing that we need to get the law in place. So we are all behind you in coming with this, and we are moving together. But I'm worried about my street broker. You know, everyone these days is into brokerage. The border guy, your aunties, your uncles, people who are just coming up and may not have a degree in real estate. What will happen to them? Will they be catered for in this law that we are doing right now? Shall we throw them out? I'm sure it's one of the hiccups that SRB faced when they realized we have to regulate these people, but many of them don't even have S4 certificates. What shall we do for those?
Thank you so much. They don't have S4. Some may not have P7, but they are doing some work. They are feeling some virtue,
yes,
which does exist. So if we say that we push them on the side, we create a crisis. I do believe that when we finally bring the bill and then the act in place, there must be some levels that must cater for each and every category of those people who are playing in this important game. And then there will be professionalizing. There will be areas for as we, of course, you have said that the board, the government was not in for boards or councils or whatever we call them, but it's a question of convincing the leadership that actually, if we put a board in place or a council in place, it will create more employment, it will professionalize, create more employment, create more jobs, and even create more money for the sector. If you look at those countries which are very rich, real estate is the key player. So the issue of board, I'm sure we shall convince, and I strongly believe that it is desirable, it is needed, it's a requirement if we are to move to the next level.
Thank you so much, Director. Vincent, in your closing remarks, Director brings in the international aspect. How are things done internationally?
Legislation and streamlining the laws is one of the best ways to promote investment in the country. Where there are vacuums, investors will fear to go there. That's what I can say. So internationally, we need to blend. Because the investors we want, they come from the regulated environments. And they want to work with the regulated environment. Otherwise, they will go where there are regulations, and Uganda will keep missing out.
Thank you, Vincent. Yes, Dr. Sengendo, what are your closing remarks?
My closing remarks is that legislation is paramount, but ethics is important, because this is about right or wrong, and that is my closing remarks. Ethics, very, very important.
Thank you so much, my dear guests. It's been a pleasure hosting you. Until next time, from Catherine Nanteza, your host tonight. Ciao.